We will continue part 2 and review. I thought to go now through some of the winning hands and see how those were played and if they were well played or not. So we are 90 BB deep here, easy open. We get 3 calls and squeeze. Well, PLO solver-wise, I don't know. We're supposed to continue, but let's check just out of curiosity. So obviously these call ranges in this trainer here are going to be way tighter than in reality. The issue 10 is that this type of hand is going to be probably pretty badly dominated. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are supposed to mainly fold. Yeah, seems to be like mainly folding basically. Or double suited version, well. There is like some, I don't know if these have been like necessarily that well simulated anyway, because this kind of situation is probably not going to occur in the PLO GTO style pretty much ever. But anyway, I decided to call obviously as we ended to win this one. I mean, the hand is kind of smooth, of course, but with this many players involved, maybe it's kind of the domination issue might be the problem. So we flop top pair, flush draw, and backdoor flush draw. And we are not folding, obviously, with SPR 0.75. And we get 4-way all-in. And when we look these hands, I mean, this guy has solid holding, but absolute chunk. Like this guy had some sort of, like, this is the kind of issue when if you look like PLO trainer results, for example, post flop or something, because obviously these hands should never be played in the first place. Yeah, this guy happens to hit, obviously pretty nice. Top 2 pair, gut shot. This guy has middle pair and wrap. Luckily it's just 1 spade, and we happen to hit the spades here. So yeah, if we think the table is solid, we probably should consider folding pre-flop maybe. I think here we are never folding the flop anyway. So I don't think that is issue. Next one. So we open. This guy was like complete maniac, basically 3-betting very high frequency. I don't exactly remember, but I think he was kind of player that when I was open raising, I kind of expect these to be 3-bet most of the time. Or like half of the time or something. So I 4-bet. We will get quite low SPR on the flop, so even though the aces are not the greatest, it's not such issue, and this is obviously a really great flop. We have the gutshot as well. Oh, he just calls, and we shall the turn, and he has ace king and double gutshot. This was for the split out tone, and we hold. But yeah, of course, this hand should never be 3-bet, and if you 3-bet and face 4-bet, not going to be a calling hand. Very bad shape against the aces overall. And of course, against this type of player, we will 4-bet. I mean, if I have, like, let's say ace, especially ace king type of hand, ace queen, probably 4-betting would have been annoying flop with ace queen queen. So next one, we have a limper, raise, flop top set, probably betting. I mean, this is not the greatest kings in a way that we don't really much of a backdoor plus draw jack high, but there is a lot of straightening cards, so you could maybe think about checking as well, but often people who are limping in the first place or open limping, they tend to be somewhat on the passive side. Of course, now that he raises, we just 3-bet, and I mean, if he calls here, it's like 58 euro bot, and he has like 34 euro behind, so I was basically shove any turn probably. But yeah, he basically clicks it back and we get it in, and he has the mid set. Very bad combination, obviously. 10 deuce 4. So far these hands have been, I think, kind of self-explanatory. Well, the first one was maybe questionable in a way, but then again when you have such players that they are going to have all sorts of trash in their calling ranges, the domination issue is probably not that. We are more likely to one that dominates their ranges, basically. With the king 10 x9 that we had. Anyway, here limp. Ali guy 3 ISO raises, this guy calls. We saw this guy calling the 10-10. Crappy 10-10 on the small blind against the bottom open. So in position here, I would imagine, or actually he's out of position. This such to beat this dealer button position. Anyway, we go for the 3-bet squeeze. Quite strong aces as well. We actually get these guys folding, which is not such a guaranteed thing. And yeah, as our expectation should be that these two guys are basically always calling, or let's say 80+% of time. And we flop the top set with cut shot. We don't have flush draw or backdoor flush draw, so it's PR2 or deeper as well. I would like to just pot. If I had better one, like let's say not flush draw, I would probably bet smaller often, but yeah, we are just potting here. This guy stacks off, and he of course has a hand that he's has to be stacking off at that point. And this hand is actually probably quite reasonable holding. Well, actually not on the small blind. If he was in the position, I think it would be fine, but I think again kind of hands that you probably should just fold against the ISO raise out of position. Quads on the river. Next one. So we open. This guy is also, as we kind of saw already, his hand is kind of often wild with the 3-bets. I think GTO wise this would probably be a calling hand, but let's check. I don't think we are really going to 4-bet. How deep we were? A bit over 100 PB. As default, I would just call in, especially in position, but I think my assumption was that this guy was 3-betting so much that we can basically just 4-bet and stack off. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if he 5-bets, but when we have such premium kings with connectivity and double shoots, even if he has the aces, we are often going to have like 40% equity, so we obviously can't fold once we do this, basically. when he calls, we know that he basically never has the aces, most likely. And we flop pretty nice with overpair, wrap, and backdoor flush draw. He don't shove. So often when the people don't shove like this, I have, at least from my experience, they tend to be often having like some sort of plain draw or one pair with some sort of draw. If they have like set or two pairs, they often just check. As general rule from my experience. Anyway, usually SPR1 we are very happy on this flop situation. Will then has decent equity here with the flush draw and pair and so on, but we evaded this time. But yeah, when you see this type of 3-bet, like if we check small blind, what he should be 3-betting in GTO. Like there should be like 7.4% frequency 3-bet, and you can see here that call is like, because rake is high, so from the small blind we really shouldn't be doing much calling necessarily. There is also this category, so we can, for example, check that if villain has one pair that is single shooted, we can basically check that aces are basically 3-betting always, and Broadway pairs sometimes, and these mid-low pairs should basically never be 3-bet. Like some of the shooted to ace versions are going to 3-bet, but so on. But basically those hands should never be 3-bet. Simplification. And especially when you, well, even in the solver, I think the fold equity here is pretty low, 25%, but I think in reality this number is even lower. If you 3-bet hand like that, you probably want to have as much fold equity as you can. But yeah, my read was that this guy is 3-betting way too much, so I just went for the 4-bet and stack off plan. As default, just calling, so we open, we'll lay 3-bets. We have pretty solid aces. I mean, we would be 4-betting like every ace, or I would be 4-betting every aces here with this stack depth. If we become deeper, like we would be having like 200 PB, I think we can. So starting to call with more aces, like especially weaker ones, because the SPR are still going to be fairly high. But in here we have like bit over SPR1, so we can just shove basically most of the flops, and especially these high low low type of flops are really great, as it's unlikely in general that villain has 2 pair or set. So yeah, we shove. He basically doesn't shove, but basically shoves. And king 7 5-3. It's quite a holding. But yeah, like these are really annoying. Like sometimes you have these sessions where you get into these spots, and these guys with like complete garbage, they keep hitting like 2 pair or trips, or they hit the 1 pair here and get the 2 pair or something, and you lose here. And I think those kind of guys, they give like good value, but they also skyrocket the variance basically. So here we ice a raise and we face a 3-bet here. So the first question is, should we call? I think in general we have the a high shoot, 3 Broadway cards, so at least I'm personally calling this one. If it was a bit weaker, I would actually fold, but so we basically can't have the limper. I mean, one option could be that we don't actually check. Bottom situation, well, yeah, let's check with the cutoff situation. So we take like one earlier position for our raise, open raise, to take account that there is the swing pair. So if we have ace king 10, or solver wise, we are calling if we have the a high shoot, but you can see here that it's not like we are that happy about it. At least in solver. Of course, if we have edge over the opponent or so on, of course, also if he has aces way more often than he should be, that's kind of a bad thing for this hand. But again, if I didn't have 3 Broadway, like if this was ace king 9-4, I would have probably folded. At least I would like to fold 10. Now we call. There is the a high flop, which is always kind of dangerous, but there's only one aces combination, and we have to pair. We have some backdoor straight potential, and most importantly the flush draw. So even if he has the aces, we are going to have at least some equity, like a bit over 30% or so. And indeed, he has the premium aces here. We happen to shock out, but I think like these are kind of, I mean, even if I didn't have the plus draw, we would probably have the stack off, but it would be, yeah, unless we have a strong read that this guy is going to have aces very, very often. And if that's the case, then maybe we should just be, we should then probably just fold pre-flop anyway. I can't remember if I had any solid read about that guy's 3-bet tendencies. So I think this is fine, but if we had any weaker combination, I wouldn't really mind folding pre-flop to 3-bet. Next one. So again, we seem to have quite a garbage hand for the middle lane. I mean, even for the button open, that's kind of like, well, I probably called here. I think squeezing this hand. What would be the solver approach? Let's check out of curiosity. We have raise and call, and we have queen, queen, 5-4. I mean, it has kind of nice connectivity in a way, and double suitedness, so I could see it's going to be a 3-bet, but here, of course, now again, we should be somewhat critical with this also in a way that if I raise here, we actually on the first video went through this type of hand, I think, and as open raiser we are. This guy is supposed to fold like 60-70% of the range, 70%. If I say that this guy is calling 100%, that's going to be way closer to reality. Maybe he folds like 10% of time, maybe not. And also this guy is going to overcall really often. If this guy folds small blind, yeah, he's not folding much because his range should be very tight in the first place. In reality, it's way wider. So like you have some, like you have way wider ranges, but you are really lacking the fold equity, which with the high rake environment at least, you will be usually decreasing the 3-bet frequency, and we would prefer to have like ace, queen, queen type of hands to have a bit more playability and so on. And of course blocking the aces, but like if this guy plays like, I don't know, 70% of the hands, it's not that likely that he shows up with the aces anyway. But yeah, I called here, which is totally fine. And we check this guy folds. So in this situation we could raise, of course, we have current nuts, but then again nuts are going to change a lot. So ace, king, jack, 8, 9, 7 or club is going to change the current nuts. So that's quite a good amount of cards. So in general, I wouldn't mind just call here, this guy, so I think we could maybe just have too much value to not raise. Because I think he's going to continue like all sorts of cuts and shots. Of course, if it's like club on the turn, we are really going to hate our life if he just calls here. But we actually get the blank. Of course, it opens more draws, but we still have the nuts. So here he has mid pair, actually double guts and flush draw. So this wasn't actually even that bad of a combination. Now, obviously, pre-flop wise, like if we check GTO wise, that hand as open raise is most likely not going to be, or it's not going to beat here. Well, yeah, double suitedness is. The double suited it would be open, but not with the single suit. But yeah, against more solid range, I would probably prefer just check calling and trying to delay check raise basically. Because we have such a bad situation. And we don't really want to donk bet this one, I think, mostly because, well, let's see. But yeah, the donk betting is problematic because when we get called, it's like the same problem is obviously here that there is a ton of turns that we don't like to continue betting. So I think like GTO wise, this hand is probably check call or check raise. Not donk betting. We are 100 PBD roughly. Single raise pot and this, well, this one is the closer at least. Queen 10 6. We don't have that. Queen 10 with the flush draw, so if we look like Queen 10 7 would be kind of close. So in our shoes, I mean, we are definitely going to have a donking range here, I think, quite a lot, but well, not actually not that much. Yeah. 4% of time, so we can basically simplify it to 100. I suppose it's like a bit too high to be good for our big blind range. Yeah, we are betting like some huge monsters here, like top sets, not flush draw. I suppose because the players in position are kind of supposed to be somewhat careful to be betting with those weaker flush draws and such. Anyway, if we face like check and this guy is betting, we have queen 5-4 without flush draw, without backdoor flush draw. No diamond, no spade. We are just purely calling. That makes sense. Also because this guy is supposed to bet just half pot and then our raise will be smaller and we are actually using just 3/4 raise sizing in the yellow trainer simulation. Of course, like if you run the Monger solver, you can input any sort of sizings, I suppose. You want here and multiple sizings if you want, but like these ones are, as far as I know, made by the mastermind Jane and this poker people. They have chosen sizings that they think are most effective ones, I suppose. So here he bets like, well, bit over half, but so yeah, I think calling would be also fine, but if we think William's betting like really merge and he's going to continue way too wide, then I don't really see huge problem here. The problem is just that what are we going to do if there is like 4 of club? Are we still going to shove, or do we check call, or might be still fine to shove in a way that there might be like huge amount of straight draws available, and we wouldn't mind to protect against those, and we still would have some equity anyway. But of course, when we get like one of the rare safeguards, we are then happy to shove. But the issue is that quite often we don't get such a nice card. As default, I probably like just check calling, then try to check raise if you like the situation on the turn, or slow play if we get like port pairing turn card, and we have basically the nuts with no need for protection. So here again against the Maniac, these are kind of 4-bet and hope for the best situations a lot of time. So again, pretty nice board. We also have the 4. And he actually had quite a big hand here with his pretty questionable holding. Again, if we look about preflop wise, I mean that hand is double suited, but if we look solver ranges, single pair, double suited, low pairs, the category section. This is pretty nice feature, this category. So if we look one pair, double suited, mid low pair, so there is like some hands like disconnected A high, some connected, so that might actually be like reasonable. 7-5-5-3. Oh, it's still too bad. If we had 7-6-5-5, it would be a call or fold. I suppose that is still too weak. But yeah, solver is using some of these, like maybe ace-5-5. 6 would be something it would free, but kind of mix. But again, it's expecting more fold equity than in reality there is, probably even against myself. So yeah, he was actually favorite on the flop with that many outside, I suppose. I mean, a lot of these aces hands, especially 100 pp deep, they are kind of playing themselves quite a bit, but of course there are situations where we can also make big mistakes. So here we have a kind of a bad AC situation that we are blocking our own outs, we don't have backdoor flush draw, we don't have hearts. This is like super clear pot for maximum protection. Queen, Jack, Jack, 8 rainbows shouldn't be even the open race. What sort of... I think we want better connection with rainbow. Rainbow version, well, it's actually like super marginal opening the GTO environment. I wouldn't, in his shoes, mind to just open for that and definitely folding the 3-bet. Especially when the 3-bet is squeeze with the caller, so. But that being said, some of people are not folding the 3-bets. So this one doesn't go showdown, we open. So this is kind of a decent example of maybe we should be folding here. So we open and get 2 calls and a squeeze. So the price is not great. This hand is not going to flop that great most of the time, so I would think we should probably fold. Yeah, so at least PLO trainer wise, we should be folding here. And it's quite somewhat clearly minus EV with GTO assumptions in post-flop obviously as well. And assuming these guys have. That's like, as I said before, like we know that this guy, for example, is going to have like VP IP80 probably. We saw that complete trash that he was 3-betting and so on. So, but I'm not sure. Like we are investing so much to see the flop and like I don't mind if this was like Jack 10 and 9, but I think 7 it just doesn't have the playability really. Because yeah, it's very often that this happens. We get 4-way, we have SPR1, so now we actually get pretty nice flop here. And this was actually interesting, so this guy is the button. So these guys check here, the player is just not working. I decided to check back thinking that against 3 players, I probably don't have that much fold equity. If this guy has aces, he's going to take out a ton of my equity. Then this guy bets, and he had been actually remembers this moment, so he had been betting a lot when it was him in position and like people check into him, and I knew that his range is like all over the board. So when these guys folded, I actually thought that there is a pretty decent chance that my pocket 10s are even the best hand here. He can be betting like total air, he might have like pocket, I don't know, weaker pocket or 8x plain, and or he might have like open ender without any pair and whatever. So I decided to shove here against this guy. Now of course if we think that we have like 8 straight outs and potentially 2 set outs, so 10 outs, backdraw, flush draw maybe. So we are like getting the equity, even if we don't assume to be good ever. But this guy actually bet folded here, which was pretty great. I didn't really expect that to happen, but shows up that he probably had complete airball, because I don't think he would fold like any sort of actual equity here. This was actually quite interesting one. But then again, I'm not really loving this decision to call necessarily. But if it was a bit more connected or double suited, I wouldn't mind, but it's probably losing play in the long run. So here, let's see what happens. So I decided to 3-bet and this guy 4-bets. And I went for the call and we flopped the nuts. I check, assuming this guy has aces a lot, and on this flop he's definitely going to most likely just pot and we get it in and hope for the best. So the question here, should we 3-bet, should we call the 4-bet? That's basically the question that matters in this one. I have no can't remember if I had any reads about these guys, so just assume we don't have any. So double pair connected, single shoot, I'm definitely 3-betting here. 9-9, the call rainbow, but if we have any suited, or actually it's mainly 3-bet in the trainer, even with the rainbow. This is something that I'm not, I think I'm somewhat patchy with these double pairs as well in these situations when we are against the wide ranges. So like we can see here that 2-pair singles, so that's 70% of 3-betting. PLO trainer, again we have less fold equity. And we shoot most of the time. But I think the nice thing about these hands are that they are often kind of easy to play. Like you either hit strong or you don't hit. Especially these somewhat smaller pairs that basically are. Kind of interesting with these disconnected two pairs are actually folding small blind. It seems like. So if we have like 7-7 deuce deuce, it's going to be a fold. Nine 5-5 rainbow folding, even single suited folding. So yeah, I suppose it makes sense deep SPR situations with these smallest pairs, especially if they are not connected. We have like 5-5-6-6. I suppose that is mainly calling or raising. Okay, so 10-10-9-9 we are raising, but if we face now this situation is a bit different because, and I remember actually thinking about it in game, that we are deeper than 100 pp deep here, so I have more implied odds to hit. Now if we look 100 pp deep here, 10-10-9-9 would be a call. And of course, reality-wise, this guy more often has aces, but I don't know if that's. I think that's probably a good thing because he's less often going to dominate or block my outs, and he's more often going to stack off on the flops. And GTO matching probably would be. I think that's just a good thing. And being more deep stacked, of course, to get more implied odds is pretty nice. Yeah, I think that was fine play. We actually have over half hour already, so let's check this one, and then I will continue on the lost hands on the next episode. So King Queen Jack 9. This looks like we might have some questionable. We have probably 3-bet button open. Bottom ISO raise, we 3-bet and get 4-bet here after this guy limp calls, and we decided to call. Now, I mean, this time he actually had ace queen, king queen jack, but I think most of the time we are actually running into aces here. Well, I don't know. It's kind of a special situation in a way that ISO raising on the button, we might be 3-betting somewhat light. This is again kind of like, we can't really have the limper here, but if we assume that he has like the cut of open raise range, this was kind of a wrecky looking player, so might actually be somewhat reasonable to look and use these solver ranges here, but so we shouldn't even be 3-betting in the first place. We should just fold. Also, we have only the jack high plus draw, so this was most likely overplay pre-flop already. We have 10, I would suppose that is. There's like some calling, some 3-betting 10. have had king, queen, jack 10, we would call against the 4, but we had this guy calling with this, like again here, he is supposed to call extremely narrow ranged here. We would mainly be calling king, queen, jack 10 combination. King, queen, jack 9, we shouldn't have been 3-betting in the first place, basically. Necessarily. Well, I don't know if it's huge deal necessarily. Maybe a bit, especially when we only have the jack high flush draw. So we just invest most of our stack here. It's probably somewhat questionable at least. We actually flop top 2 with the gutshot, so and got really lucky flop against that holding especially. But okay, this is it. And again, if you have any feedback about these, please feel free to give any of that, any feedback. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.